what we've got in store today, boys. It's probably about another hour to hour and a half. I'm thinking we're going to be able to finish episode 3. And after I talk for a minute, I might start something new, sort of. I think, well, so it's definitely going to be normal for, most future streams. I just, like I was talking about last time, this one kind of just has like a special reasoning to it, I guess. I don't know. I don't even really want to finish this game, like I've said 1,000 times, but we're going to. This will be the first game we complete on stream, other than Red Dead. But yeah, so I might just play a video on what will be over here on the stream on this far side, and it'll be for kind of like white noise. I'll probably comment on it a lot. I'll always have like what video we're watching underneath, and it'll probably usually be historical, but yeah, it'll work well for other games that we're playing, and this game is a little boring, so. But we will, I believe, what we're doing now is collecting supplies. Let's see, forgot how to locate and return the missing survivors. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna have to go all over the place. Plus get a bunch of, so we should probably get the supplies first, and then open emergency kit. Oh, what? Get the supplies first, and then we will go and grab the survivors. And I think after we survive this storm, I believe that we will be done with this episode. Hopefully. Okay. Yeah, because I am ready to be done with this game. If we're gonna be real here. This game gives me. Is that a wolf right there? Okay, no. So we're just gonna go house to house. Well, last time I don't think we fully looted everything. What kind of supplies do we even need? Antiseptic, calories, firewood, bandages. Yeah, so we need a lot of shit. We can get firewood from stuff like that, reishi mushrooms. Yeah, we're just gonna have to collect pretty much everything. I don't know if items respawn, but I also don't think that we took everything last time. I mean, I'm sure there's gotta be some stuff that we missed, right? I hope we weren't too thorough. We might have been, though. I don't know, we did kind of do a number on these parts. And over there. Well, at least go get this first guy. Or the caches. Black Rock. Contemplation Bridge. Wait, where even are we? I'm so confused. So the bridge is over there. We need to go away from the city. Towards over here. Oh yeah, Contemplation Bridge is that first bridge we crossed, right? Yeah, okay. I'd say there might be some supplies in the cars along the way, so we'll actually follow the road. And I guess cars are probably good for hiding. But yeah, I was gonna say, I know it's been a minute since the last stream. And also, like I was saying, we used to get viewers, but I stopped streaming on Twitch, and so I think after this game is done, kind of just because this is like a practice run for me, not only getting my schedule in order, but yeah, just everything else too, getting the schedule, getting my talking back in order, what games I want to do, what kind of content, yeah, just everything in general, and also I'll just kind of like, you know, like making sure the stream works well, like micromanaging that kind of thing. And so we're not streaming on Twitch, we're only streaming on YouTube. But as soon as we're done with this game and I get the other supercuts of the episodes put out, I am gonna start probably multi-streaming to Kick and YouTube, and then probably uploading shorts to like a TikTok. But yeah, we'll see. Because I have the software for it. It's just gonna be a lot of editing time more than anything. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah. So after this, I think things will change a little bit. But I don't know. We're just gonna keep putting up videos. And I do kind of like the idea of just recording, but then I don't know. I just always feel so much more inauthentic recording, and things can be staged more, and I don't know. This is just better practice for a lot of different skills overall. And yeah, in the future, I mean, I just don't want to make videos. I like the idea of streaming, so I don't want to record for practice. I'll just stream to no one for practice. Okay, so we should be coming up to a new survivor. Come on, where you at, buddy? Is he above the river? Okay, I think he might be above. God damn it, dude, I was just up there. Okay. Come on, come on. And yeah, we're gonna learn over the next little bit about the Mongolians. I kinda wanted to watch Dan Carlin's thing, about it, but he doesn't have it on YouTube, so I'd have to buy it on Spotify, I think, and yeah. I want there to be a video, so maybe in the future we'll do some Dan Carlin stuff if it's available on YouTube. Where is this? Oh! Hey, 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 hey. I see what's going on here. They're not exactly where they say they are, unless this is Methuselah. Oh! Flare shells. Diagnose. I don't have any water. Okay, come on, buddy. You just gotta cross this bridge. Yeah. I don't know. I truly figure that if we can make it through this game with no viewers and like pretty much nothing actually making us finish this game, then pretty sure we can play anything. And that's kind of what I'm going for. This is more of just like a conditioning run, if anything. Because the game is slow. I didn't really want to play it to start with, but... And it's really, I mean, there's not much going on, so, I mean, it makes me need to talk. But it's probably what we'll do is we'll get this villager back, and then we will turn on the video. Terrible sound. Ooh, is he talking about the Yeti, or is he just talking about the crash? Or maybe like people screaming, I don't know. Could be a lot of things. I also don't know why my temperature goes down so much more when I'm holding them, because it's like, you know, you would think like that, you know, I'm moving. Dude, you're literally on my back. I could not leave you if I wanted. I hope there's not wolves. God damn, is that where the crash is? All the way up there? Oh, is that a wolf? Oh, that's a car. We're fine. We're doing great. Hopefully we can get up this hill. Hopefully I don't twist my ankle. I'm trying to help this guy. Because I don't think I have very many bandages. Okay. Yeah, we just gotta follow this up. Yep. Hip hip, buddy. We're gonna make it. If anything, I'm gonna be in worse shape when we end up at the church than you. But yeah, I would say also, but probably up until we finish this game, I think it'll probably last us. We're gonna be learning about the Mongols, kind of the entirety of their history. It's a really cool YouTube channel called Follow Civilizations. They just pick an empire and, you know, go over its history. I don't know, it's pretty entertaining. So that'll be cool. And then yeah, I'll probably discuss certain things, and we'll kind of just keep a track of things we've learned on stream, and yeah, eventually we'll learn everything. Who knows? But yeah, it'd be cool to do a lot of just kind of like informational streams. I don't know if a lot of people do that, or reviewing. Just feel like a lot of people, no, there's not like a stream that's dedicated to like reviewing information. I don't know, kind of like applying it and talking about it. So I guess that will be us. It was a plane crash, dude. But I mean, like, yeah, like this game is just like, I'm literally gonna have to walk back and forth 3 times and then probably deal with wolves, and I don't know. It's just like, I really hope this was their first game, like, ever, because it's not really it. I'm debating whether to even play episode 4 at all, but I think we gotta. Although, I don't know. I probably should just get used to a whole lot of nothing in my life. I mean, not in like a weird way. I just mean like I want to walk across the country, so that's gonna be a lot of monotony, which I also want to record, which is kind of why I'm doing this whole thing. I mean, as much as I want to stream, I really would like to be able to have a career in walking. Sounds really dumb, but I don't know, I think it'd be cool. Then eventually get to a point where I can just make videos about it all the time and have like an on-the-go setup, maybe even like an on-the-go streaming setup for like, I don't know, camping and shit. I don't know, that'd just be cool. So that's what I'm hoping towards the future. But what we need to work on right now, no matter what, is the discipline of a routine. I need to be streaming at least like 5 times a week, and then just getting out supercuts and clips, like, yeah, multiple times throughout the week. So that'll be, or I mean, natural clips. Like I'm not gonna just like, I don't know. But some of that might be hard without friends or without like an exciting game, but we will see. Sometimes it just might be spiels about the Mongolians or whatever. Boom. Maybe back to the church. Can I put him down? down here. Okay. We got one survivor. What is this, Molly's? Pleasant Valley Outbuildings. Derelict cabins. I wonder if... Do lanterns keep things away at night? That would be important to know. Just survive off of water. I'm gonna need caches because I kind of raided this like city or whatever. I am not thirsty. Don't tell me what I am and am not. I can be what I want to be. At any moment, I can be free. Let's see if I can repair some clothes. Actions. Harvest. So maybe I will harvest this. Yeah, we'll just spend tonight making sure we can stay warm, because I actually think that's my problem. I don't think it's because of whatever else. Yeah, because when I'm carrying people, I think I just have shit clothes on her. Haven't really done anything. Fair amount for 3%. So it's not as windproof, but it is warmer. Yeah, we'll wear that. Okay, 99, 87. Maybe I did do maintenance on her clothes and I'm just not remembering. These all seem pretty alright. Okay, is there a place I can sleep in here? I need to west. Is there like a way to get water? Any sort of bathroom? Jeez, man, there ain't nothing in here. Not yet. Holy shit, yeah, never mind. I do need to sleep. Do I have a bedroll? Yes, I do. Okay, so it's just about nighttime. Sleep for 10 hours. Fuel up, get the next survivor unless it's snowing, and then fucking boom, 2 out of 3. Oh shit. That's not good, boys. I don't know if that means something in the story is gonna happen, or... Oh my gosh, I'm gonna run out of water. Actually, we're just gonna sleep for another 6 hours, fuck it. I don't even care. I don't want to go outside when it's all fucking... It's got all these electrolytes and shit. Yeah, see? Now we're good. Pick up. Drink another soda. Hopefully that doesn't make me sick. Oh god, dude. Here we go, run. running out of soda quick. Alright. Okay. Yeah, we gotta go grab this guy. So now we're gonna put on the video I've been talking about. So look at this. I got this cool little thing. Boom, boom. I open this up. Alright. You see what's going on
With
here?
Geico, we can easily bundle home and car insurance and save even more.
You might think that that's loud, but then all I have to do is like turn that down a little bit,
Get more with Geico.
and then I, oh god, and then all I gotta do is turn this down a little bit. So yeah, we'll put this down to like 20, then we can control him through here. Right. And then if I go to here, oh no. So for this to work well, I actually need a third monitor.
Around the year 1333, the North African writer and traveller Ibn Battuta went on a journey
That could be
around
problematic.
all of Asia that would take him to India and over the sea to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and eventually on to his final
'Cause, like,
destination of China.
Yeah, like that.
But the first
That's
leg
not
of
what
this
we're looking
journey
for.
took him along the winding roads overland from Constantinople. He
What
travelled
if I do
past the
this?
shores of the Black and Caspian seas, over vast grasslands, and on southwards through the deserts of Central Asia, in what is now Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan.
Is there a way I can have it
Ibn Battuta had heard
capture a
marvelous
specific
stories about
window?
the opulent cities that lay along the
Or a
vast Arabian
specific,
known as the Silk Road,
tab?
which laced across the continent of Asia. These were the cities of Balkh, Bukhara, and Samarkand. First, he visited the city of Bukhara, once the jewel of Islamic learning, a city of enormous libraries and colleges.
Properties.
But to his disappointment, when he arrived, he found the city a much reduced place, as he wrote in his journal.
ثم سرنا في بساتين متصلة وأنهار وأشجار وعمارات يوم.
We traveled for a whole day through contiguous orchards with streams, trees, and habitations, and arrived at the city
Oh,
of
whoa.
Bukhara. This city
Okay.
was formerly the capital
Okay.
of the lands beyond the river
I know what I
Jordan,
need to do.
but was laid in ruins.
So if I
at the
do-
present time, its mosques,
Okay, watch
colleges, and
this.
bazaars are in ruins, all but a few,
Yes.
and its inhabitants are
Video
down
window.
There is not one
If
person
I
living
switch
today who
this
possesses any
to-
religious learning, or who shows any concern for acquiring it.
يعلم شيئا من العلم
One of these.
Surprised at the sorry sight of the once great city of Bukhara, Ibn Battuta
Wait,
continued
I don't
on
want
to
to-
the opulent metropolis of
Oh my
Samarkand.
gosh, you guys are watching me fumble.
سافرت إلى مدينة
That's alright, this is just part of the experience.
I journeyed to the city of Samarkand,
Okay.
once one of the greatest and finest of cities, and most perfect of them in beauty. It is built on the bank of the river called the
I
Rad
want to
al-Basri,
change
along which there are
this.
water wheels to supply water to the orchards.
عليه نوعير تسقي البساتين.
But when he arrived at the oasis of Samarkand, he found it too was in a much diminished state. The city was sparsely inhabited,
Okay.
its legendary walls torn down.
We're just gonna
long
have
ago,
to freaking.
and its grand buildings standing.
We're just gonna have to get over this.
وكانت على
Freaking
شاطئ
window
النيل
capture.
عظيم، وعمارة تنقل
We're gonna call this
Formerly
the
great
video.
palaces and constructions which bear witness to the lofty aspirations of the townsmen.
Boom.
But most of this is
And
obliterated,
then
and most of the city
automatic.
itself has also fallen into ruin. It has no city
which
wall
title, yeah,
and no
sure.
gates, and there is vegetation growing inside it.
وفي
Ibn Battuta soon left
Wait,
that
capture
melancholy
audio.
place and continued on
When
his
enabled,
journey.
creates an application
Finally,
audio
he passed
capture
through the
source
city
that
of
automatically
now
updates to
in northern Afghanistan. This had once been
that
another
if desktop
wealthy
audio
trading
is
and a center
configured.
for the Zoroastrian religion.
That's probably what would happen,
From a
right?
distance, he could see
Okay.
its tall
So now what we do.
buildings rising out of
So
the
we
river
add
plain.
this.
But as he got
We
closer,
make
he
this
saw no
the
smoke
appropriate
of cooking
size.
fires, no animals in the fields, no traffic of people in its streets. An eerie feeling must have crept up on him.
Alright.
فوجدنا نهر جيهون إلى
Okay.
بلاد خراسان وسرنا بعد انصراف
Oh my gosh.
وإلى
Guys, we are
crossed the river Jai
dropping the
into the
ball.
land of Khorasan and marched for a day and a half, crossing the river through uninhabited desert and sands to the city of Balkh. It
Okay,
is
so we got
completely
that, right?
dilapidated and uninhabited, but anyone seeing
And
it
then-
would think it to still be inhabited because of the solidity of its construction. For it was a vast and important city. Its mosques and colleges
Okay.
preserve their outward appearance even now, with the inscriptions on their buildings incised with lapis blue paints.
Display.
بأصبغة لازرة.
They're
As he
speaking a very
passed
scary
through this
language.
devastated region, he
Okay.
heard stories about other ruined cities lying out in the desert, now so empty of life
So
that they
then,
could offer no shelter to travelers.
if I go to here,
خراسان العظيمة أربع. اثنتان عامرتان.
The great cities of Khorasan are four. Two of them are inhabited, namely Herat and Nishapur.
hello?
Two are in ruins, namely Balkh and Merv.
وهما بلخ ومر.
Had he journeyed out to the city of Merv, he would have found an even more devastated ruin. Just a series
Okay,
of
yeah, so you
jagged
can hear the
earthen
audio.
lanes
Okay, okay.
rising out of cracks
We're chilling,
in the
we're
grass
chilling.
of the desert, home only to owls and wild dogs, where once a city of 500,000 people had stood. Everywhere across this region, the cities bore the scars of one of
Okay,
the latest,
so that
most momentous and
Can
world-changing
stay
events.
like that.
This was the uniting
This.
of nomadic people who called
We go
themselves
boom.
the Mongols. From
And
their
then we come
homeland
over
far
here,
away in the steppe
right?
grasslands of East Asia,
And then I'm
the
like,
Mongols had fused their anarchic pastoral culture into
Wait,
a
what's
war
up with
machine
this?
that has had few equals in history, and forged an empire that would stretch across much of the landmass of Asia, the largest continuous land empire in history. In almost every land they touched, they would bring destruction and death, fear and anguish. But in places, they also laid the foundation for
So if
our
I go to
modern
theater
world.
mode,
As Ibn Battuta stood in the abandoned streets of Balkh, Samarkand, and Bukhara,
see,
he
yeah,
must have
so I
wondered
really,
at the
for this
unlikely
to work
story of
super
strange
well,
nomadic conquerors.
I really
He
should
must have
have
wondered those
a,
ruined palaces and crumbled
third
places
monitor.
of worship, those empty markets and
That would be
dilapidated
fun. We are just gonna turn this up a little bit, because I think you guys hear this pretty much the same intensity that I hear it. Okay. Boom.
Around the year 1333, the North African
1333.
writer and traveller Ibn Battuta went on a journey around all of Asia that would take him to
All of
India
Asia.
and over the sea to
Alright.
Sri Lanka, Bangladesh,
Let's get back to it.
Malaysia, and eventually on to his final destination of China.
Okay.
But the first leg of this journey took him along the
So it
winding
is the
roads
morning.
overland from
We actually just
Constantinople.
need to go this.
He travelled
way.
past the shores of the Black and Caspian seas, over vast grasslands, and on southward
Contemplation
through the
Bridge.
deserts of Central Asia,
Just
in
follow
what is
this
now
crossover
Kazakhstan,
here.
Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan.
So many stands.
Ibn Battuta had heard
Ibn Battuta
marvelous
fucking got
stories
his
about
way,
the
got
unknown
around.
cities that lay along the vast trade route known as the Silk Road, which laced across the continent of Asia. These were the cities of Balkh, Bukhara, and Samarkand. First, he visited the city of Bukhara, once the jewel of Islamic learning.
Yeah,
A
so
city
definitely
of
for this
enormous
setup that I want to
libraries
do in the
and
future, I'm going to
colleges.
need one more.
But to his disappointment, when he arrived, he found the city a much reduced place, as he wrote in his journal.
ثم سرنا في
Maybe
بساتين
picking up some
متصلة وأنهار وأشجار
sticks.
وعمارات يوما
We
كان.
travelled for a whole day through contiguous orchards with streams, trees, and habitations, and arrived at the city
Hopefully
of
this guy's got
Bukhara.
a fire too.
This city was formerly the capital of the lands beyond the River Jain,
The
but was
River
laid in
Jain.
ruins, so at the present time its mosques, colleges, and bazaars are in ruins, all but a few, and its inhabitants are looked down upon.
Wait, does this take place
There is
after
not
the
one
Mongols?
person in it today
Or
who
is this
possesses
during?
any religious learning, or who shows any concern for acquiring it.
يعلم شيئا من العلم ولا من له عناية به.
Surprised at the sorry sight of the once great city of Bukhara, Ibn Battuta continued on to the opulent metropolis of Samarkand.
Oh my gosh, you're,
سافرت إلى مدينة سمرقند وهي
I
you're,
journeyed
you're
to the
talking
city
about
of
making
Samarkand.
fires?
Once one of the greatest
That is
and
awful.
finest of cities, and most perfect of them in beauty. It is built on the bank of the river called the Wad al Wasarin, along which there are water wheels to supply water to the orchards.
عليهم نواعير تسقي
Where is this lady?
But when he arrived at the oasis of Samarkand, he found it too was in a much diminished state. The city was sparsely inhabited, its legendary walls torn down long ago, and its grand buildings standing in ruins.
Oh, wait,
وكانت
is that
على
a tent?
شاطئه
No, that's the
قصور
farm.
عظيمة وعمارة تنبئ
There
عن
were formerly great palaces on the riverbank,
What is that?
and
That's
constructions
grass.
which bear witness to the lofty aspirations of the townsfolk. But most of this is obliterated, and most of the city itself has also fallen into ruin. It has no city wall and no gates, and there is vegetation growing inside it.
وفي داخلها البساتين.
Ibn
Come on,
Battuta
lady.
soon left that melancholy place and continued on his journey. Finally, he passed through the city of Balkh, now in northern Afghanistan. This had once been another wealthy trade hub and a center for the Zoroastrian religion. From a distance, he could see its tall buildings rising out of the river plains. But as he got closer,
Where
he saw
is
no smoke of cooking
this person?
fires, no animals in the fields, no traffic of people in its streets. An eerie feeling must have crept up on him.
ثم
It
جزنا
still
نهر
says
جيد
that they're
إلى
forward.
بلاد خراسان وسرنا
I
بعد
hope that they
انصرافنا
are.
من ترمذ
Next,
وإجازة
we crossed the River Jain into the land of Khorasan and marched for a day and a half, crossing the river
Maybe
through
they're just
uninhabited
closer to the
desert
river?
and sands to the city of Balkh. It is completely dilapidated
Oh
and
my gosh, dude,
uninhabited,
if I die
but
out
anyone
here, I'm
seeing
gonna
it
be
would
so
think it to
mad.
still be inhabited because of the solidity of its
Worst case
construction.
scenario, I think we
For
can
it
go
was a
to
vast and
the
important city.
farmhouse.
Its mosques and colleges
That's a
preserve
bear.
their outward appearance, even now, with the inscriptions on their buildings incised
Where
with lapis blue
is
paste.
this lady? I don't have a.
بأصبغة لا زلت.
Do I have a rifle?
As he passed through this devastated region, he heard stories about other ruined cities lying out in the desert, now so empty of
Where
life
the fuck
that they could
is
offer
this
no
survivor?
shelter to travelers.
Do they all have
ومدن خراسان العظيمة
fires like
اثنتان
first guy?
عامرتان
The great cities of Khorasan are four. Two of them are inhabited, namely Herat and Nishapur, and two are in ruins, namely Balkh and Merv.
وهما بلخ
Um,
ومرو.
Is he over
Had
here?
he journeyed out to the city of Merv, he would have found an even more devastated ruin. Just a series of jagged
Yeah, I gotta
earthen
go to
remains
this
rising out of the cracked salt flats
church
of
over
the desert,
here.
home only to owls and wild dogs.
because I mean, like,
where once
yeah,
a city
I don't know where
of
this.
500,000
I might
people
just look up where the
stood.
survivor is because
Everywhere across this
Yeah.
region, the cities bore the
This
scars
game
of one of the
is-
Middle Ages' most momentous
I just want
and
to beat it. I don't even know if I want to beat it
events.
this way. You know what I mean?
This was the uniting of a nomadic people who called themselves the Mongols. From their homeland
Actually,
far
I could
away
make this
in
setup a
steppe
little bit better.
grasslands
I
of
could
East
just
Asia,
watch the
Mongols
video
had fused their
and then
anarchic
pull up the
pastoral
chat
culture into a war
on my
machine that has had few
phone.
equals in history.
But that won't
and
work
forged
when I
an
start
empire that
multi-streaming
would
either,
stretch
so...
across much of the landmass of Asia, the largest continuous land empire in history.
Holy shit.
In almost every land they touched, they would bring destruction and death, fear and anguish. But in places,
that the
they
church?
also laid the
Cabin or
foundation
whatever?
for our modern world.
Alright, we'll go there.
As Ibn Battuta stood in the abandoned streets
Torn
of
clothing
Balkh,
and
Samarkand
bruise.
and Bukhara, he must have wondered at the unlikely story of these strange nomadic conquerors. He must have wondered those ruined
strange
palaces
nomadic
and crumbled
conquerors.
places of worship.
Okay, so Ibn
those
Battuta
empty
was
markets
post-Mongolian,
and dilapidated
the Middle
houses,
Eastern
and
Mongolian
asked himself,
invasions.
where had these mysterious conquerors come from?
True.
What did they want?
Is that a wolf?
And why had no one been able to stop
Hopefully
them?
there's some ammo in this barn, or this cabin. Pick up a bunch of these sticks. I'm gonna have to get really good at my listening skills with this setup until we can get a third monitor, which might be quite some time.
My name's Paul Cooper, and you're listening to the Fall of Civilizations podcast. Each episode, I look at a civilization of the past that rose to glory, and then collapsed into the ashes of
There
history.
better be ammo
I
in
want to
here,
ask,
dude.
what did they have in
Or
common?
I'm gonna
What
be
led
mad.
to their fall? And what did it feel like to be a
Okay,
person
at least there's a
alive
bed.
at a time who witnessed the end of their world? In this episode, I want to tell one of the most remarkable and unlikely stories
bottle.
from medieval
Nice.
history, the story of the
Old
Mongol
oak.
Empire. I want to show
Ooh,
how this
I saw
group
some
of
bullets, but I think
nomadic
that's for a
horse riders
revolver.
united the peoples of the
Damn it.
Mongolian steppe
Damn it.
and forged them into a truly unique kind of state.
Why would anyone wear
I
this
want
in
to
winter?
describe how they conquered much of the
Fucking
land
know,
of
dude.
Eurasia
Bunch of loonies
and
I
brought
am,
the
I-
distant cultures of China, Persia, the Middle East and Europe into
Let's do
contact.
some food.
And I want to tell the story of how the world's largest land empire finally came apart and left the world as we know it in its wake.
Oh my.
The Eurasian steppe is the largest grassland on Earth. It's a vast corridor of seasonal savannas that run virtually the entire length
Fuck
of
it, dude.
Asia.
We'll look
It
it up.
covers around 7%
Save some time,
of the
save some
planet's
energy.
land surface.
We'll just cut it out of the
It
supercut.
stretches from
Yeah.
Hungary and Poland in Eastern Europe, more than 8,000
Wow, it's all the way
kilometers,
across.
passing over mountain ranges and rolling hills,
Um,
past salty inland seas and sandy deserts, and over countless rivers, until it reaches northern China and the forests of Manchuria on the Pacific coast. The word steppe entered English from the Russian language, with its origin possibly rooted in the old Slavic word sutepi, which means a place that is flat. and
Okay, so
bare.
they do all have fires.
The Russian
so.
author Anton Chekhov describes the landscape of the steppe.
We'll go get this guy first, actually.
A plain, broad, boundless,
Fuck, dude, I
girdled
don't
by
have
a chain of hills, lies stretched before the traveller's
Oh.
eyes. The
I don't
hills
have a,
merge into
revolver.
rising ground, extending to the very horizon and disappearing into the lilac-hued far distance. On and on you travel, but where where it all begins and where it ends, you just cannot make out. Coarse steppe grass, milkweed, wild hemp, all are drenched in dew
Okay.
and caressed by the
Gotta
sun.
go back, grab this guy. Come on, come on.
The green
gotta find his
forested
fire.
lands of China and Europe receive moisture from the winds blowing in from the
And then
Pacific
we'll
and
warm all the way
Atlantic
back up.
oceans, meaning that they can support
And
large trees, forests,
try and go
and
get the last
all
guy.
manner of crops. But the lands of the steppe receive most of their airflow from the north, from the frozen polar ocean of the Arctic.
Oh, the Arctic Ocean.
Cold air cannot hold much moisture, and what little it contains falls as rain in the northern mountains, where the great
Oh
frozen
boy,
pine
I'm in
forests
dangerous
of
area.
Siberia stretch.
Dangerous terrain.
The low rainfall on the
I got
steppe
16
means
flare
that
shots, so I
trees
shouldn't be too
cannot
scared.
survive.
And I was
And
just
even
reading, it said that I
species
can
of long
shoot the
grasses find
flares
it difficult
to
take root.
try and
As a
locate
result,
the
all that
survivors. I'm
remains
assuming
here
once I'm
are
in like their
hardiest
little
species of
circle,
short grasses.
circular vicinity.
For this reason, the steppe has always
I
supported
know you can't feel
massive
your feet. We're
herds
gonna
of
get you
grazing
too far.
animals. The first humans to set foot on the steppe arrived about 40,000 years ago. They were hunter-gatherers who lived off what the land provided. In its rolling grassland, they hunted mammoths. Then,
I
once
really
those
hope
had died
that
out,
bear never
boar,
comes back though, 'cause
antelope,
I am
goats, and aurochs,
out of ammo.
and one animal that lived in the steppe in abundance: the wild horse.
Okay, so I think I'm in the vicinity, so I
Horses
should be able
evolved
to.
in North America around 4 million years ago, but had crossed over to Asia during one of the last ice ages, when a land bridge
Let's try this
existed
again.
between Alaska and eastern Russia. Humans and horses would one day form one of the most successful partnerships in history, but our fascination
Oh,
with them
I see.
goes
They
back
just shot.
even
They just
further.
shot a flare.
Horses are
Oh.
the animal
Oh, that is
most
so
frequently
cool.
depicted
Okay,
in the
I'm coming
oldest
for you.
prehistoric cave paintings, even in those of Chauvet Cave in France,
Isn't
which
this
are
like
more
right
than
where the bear was?
30,000 years old and predate the domestication of the horse by 25 millennia. For all these thousands of years, humankind had looked on the horse as a symbol of
So
power,
we'll make some potable
grace,
water here.
and perhaps also freedom. When people arrived on the Eurasian steppe, they initially hunted horses for food.
There's
like
no way
any
this
other
was
animal,
mine. I got stuck in the
with
tree,
horse
right?
bones showing up
Did I
in
just follow my
slaughter
own?
sites
Oh,
from at least 10,000 years ago.
did
But
I just
sometime
follow my
around
own fucking
6,000
flare?
years ago, they began to be kept as livestock.
Okay,
Humans first
so
used
there
horses
is a
for
couple of
milk
things
and meat,
here.
alongside their cattle,
Let's
sheep,
see
and
if we can
goats.
take anything.
But over the following 1,000 years or so, humans
Stones.
learned that if a horse was sufficiently tamed, it would
I know.
allow a human
Here,
to
it'll be
ride
okay.
on its back. We will never know which daring young man or woman first leapt up onto the back of a horse and braved the inevitable bucking and
True,
kicking
dude. First
that
horse
every
rider
horse
had to have
breaker
been
must
crazy.
learn to endure. But when they did, they changed the course of human history.
Diagnose? Need
Around
water or something?
5,000 years ago, we begin to see evidence of horse riding on the Eurasian steppe. One burial site in Botai in
Feeling better
northern
now?
Kazakhstan contains the bones of horses, with the earliest signs of wear on the teeth and jawbones that
I
suggest
was
they
gonna
had
say, I know
worn
I
a
brought that
metal
pop,
bit
dude.
in their mouths for much of their life, which could be
Not
attached
two
to the
waters.
reins for a rider. This development occurred at a momentous time in human history. Around the world, the
tomato soup?
earliest
That should give me
cities
some
were just
hydration
then
too, I believe.
coalescing in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and elsewhere, and a new way of human life was taking shape.
The nomadic
This
way of
new
life? Oh no,
lifestyle was
civilization.
based on the planting of
Fuck
grain, the
civilization.
making of pottery, and the building
That's
of
what really
fixed
got the Mongolians
dwellings.
going.
Soon came
They saw houses
hierarchies
and said, "Oh,
religions, priests and
get that
kings,
shit off of my
armies,
steppe."
and city walls. From this settled way of life, the first written words would be set down, cut into clay tablets in the Sumerian cities
we're
of
gonna
Ur and Uruk. carved into the stone
Turn
temples
both
of
of these
Egypt
up
and into
just a
shoulder
little bit.
bones and tortoise shells in China.
Volume mixer.
But it's clear that in the vast expanse of the Eurasian steppe, an equally dramatic revolution was taking place.
Okay.
It's around this time that the first mention of horses begins to
Okay.
appear in the written texts of the Sumerians. They would call them by the name Anshe
then here
Kura,
we can put
meaning
the audio.
donkey of the mountains, since they first arrived from the mountainous north. One Sumerian text written more than 4,000 years ago is one of the first to mention
Alright, boom.
this new animal,
Optimized.
describing the hero god Lugulbanda as being as swift as a mountain horse.
We'll pass the time.
Holy Lugalbanda came out from the mountain cave, and from that spot he sped away like a horse
Potable
of the
water.
mountains.
Take it.
Like a
Okay.
lone wild ass, he darted over the mountains.
Ooh.
Like
Look
a
at
large,
this potable
powerful
water that we
donkey,
got.
he raced. A slim donkey, eager to run.
Okay.
He bounded along.
Let's get you back to the church, lady.
Human life
Got a
had just
job to
sped
do.
up considerably, and the domestication of the horse would change life on the steppe forever. A herder traveling by foot can cover a maximum of only about 30 kilometers a day, which limits how large his flock
Okay.
can be, and
As long
how
as there's
far
no
he could
animals,
range in search
should
of
be
new
chilling.
grazing lands. But riding on the back of a horse meant you could cover more than 100 kilometers
True.
at a push.
You can cover a lot
and
more
you
distance
could
on a
travel
horse
at
over.
5 times the speed over a short distance.
That's what they tell you. It's the Mongolians
With
want you
greater
to
ability
think, at
to
least.
cover large areas, you could also effectively manage much larger herds.
Feel like a
And with more
Mongolian,
food
I know.
available, you could establish ever bigger families and social groups.
True.
While
Pastoralism,
all around
baby.
the world, other peoples were settling down into ever larger cities built of mud, brick, and stone. The people of the
I mean, we
steppe
still
were
got
developing
quite a bit of ways to
parallel
go.
way of life,
We've only been
a
walking
life
for a few minutes.
constantly on the move.
And realistically, I'm just taking the quickest way there. Hold down this W
After
button
the
and get
horse,
this bit home.
people in the western steppe
Let's do it.
also likely invented the wheel, allowing them to transport bigger loads.
But yeah, I don't know. This
as
last
well as
mission
their
is such a
families,
slog.
the elderly, and
I
children
just feel
too
like it has to
young
be
ride.
the final mission for the
Whole
sequence.
communities could
And I
now
mean, we're gonna have to
become
give them all of our food,
completely mobile,
and I'm imagining we're
living
gonna have to
their
find a
lives from
fucking
birth
escape
to
route
death
like we did
without
last time. I
ever
don't know.
settling in one
Not looking
place.
forward to it, but I think we're already
This
there.
alternative
Hopefully, we get
way
set up
of life
in episode 4
would meet
with
remarkable success.
the other guy and Mackenzie.
One legacy
we have
of that
some
success is the
materials
language
and
that
supplies
many of
and
us
such.
speak today.
We'll see though.
Beginning perhaps around 4000 BC, an enigmatic population known only as the Proto-Indo-Europeans rode out of the western portion of the steppe in all directions. They brought their horses, their wagons and chariots with them.
Oh God.
Wherever they went, from India to Persia, Greece and Northern Europe, they conquered or settled and left their language behind. Their lost dialect is the ancestor of 445 languages that survive to this day, from Hindi, Sinhala, Punjabi and Farsi to Russian, Spanish, French, German and English.
You
And in
dumbass
all of
dogs,
these
where are
languages,
you?
they left traces of their way of life. Many languages in the Indo-European family use similar words derived from
Dog? Dude, I
Proto-Indo-European
fucking
for
hate these
objects
things.
like wheel, axle, wagon, chariot, and of course, horse.
Get away.
It's believed the Proto-Indo-Europeans had 2 words for horses, which have been reconstructed to something like equos and marcos, possibly
Equos,
to differentiate
marcos.
between a wild horse and a tamed horse.
Okay, I
Equos
think we only gotta
entered Latin
deter
as
2 more, maybe?
epos, from which we get
Come on, come on.
equestrian, and it entered ancient Greek
God
as
damn
hippos,
you,
from which
dumb
we get
fucking
hippodrome
dog.
and hippopotamus. And the word Marcos has
Marcos.
survived in English as the word for female horse, a mare.
Oh,
This
true.
English word
I
can
have
be
heard that
found
word before.
echoing on the other side of the world in Mongolia, where a single
Oh
horse
my
is
god, dude.
called
You have to
Nor.
use
And
9
even in the
flares to
non-Indo-European
get rid of
language
these
of
dumb
Mandarin
fucking
Chinese,
things.
where a horse
Alright,
is
come on,
called
come on,
Ma.
Come on, Ava.
Today, these
got to
words
go.
connect people on every side of the globe, and nearly half of the world's population speaks a language descended from the Indo-European.
If I remember right, this didn't last very long last time, though. It's saving again because they're gonna come back.
Proto-Indo-Europeans were the first nomads to ride out of the steppe and leave their mark on history. But they were far.
We need to watch a video about the Proto-Indo-Europeans.
Still, there were.
I want to get a
drawbacks to the
whiteboard,
nomadic
and I'll do
lifestyle.
like some history
While the
videos.
settled peoples of
And
the
maybe
world
we'll use
developed
some, like,
alphabets
clips
and
during
writing
the stream
systems that allowed them to
as
keep
like
records
reference as
and
to why I'm
recount their
making the video,
histories.
or like
The
when I
peoples
said
of
a
the
certain
steppe
thing
did
and
not develop their own
what I
system
mean
of
by that.
writing.
I don't know.
For this reason, for much of their history, we can
I
only
definitely do
detect
wanna-
their presence through the writings of others
I just
who
feel like we
often
need a whiteboard.
feared and hated them.
Oh my god.
In the
Get away,
5th
wolf.
century BC, the Greek historian Herodotus would
Oh
write
no,
one
it's
account
gonna come back.
of the horse-riding nomads who lived in the steppe around the Black Sea and increasingly made armed raids into Central Europe. A people the Greeks called
Why are we talking about the
Scythians.
Proto-Indo? Oh. are the Scyth-
Rather than cities or
Are the
walls,
Scythians the build up
they
to
all
the
carry their
Mongolians?
homes around with them on wagons, practice their archery from horseback, and depend for their living on cattle rather than the fruits of the plough. How
Meet their Mongolians.
could they fail to defy every effort made to conquer them or to pin them down?
Already the settled peoples of the world were encountering a
Get away.
paradox. Despite
Just
all
let me
the
be.
technological advancement that agricultural society had brought, these steppe peoples
Hey.
were still exceptionally difficult to fight. More than 800 years later, the struggling Roman
Fuck you.
Empire was limping through the remains of the 4th century, rocked by crisis and civil war.
Come on, you
It
want
was
some of
at
this, dogs?
point that they were menaced
Hey,
by
dogs,
a
you want
new
some of this?
threat. A nomadic people who rode out of the steppe and sent waves of refugees fleeing in their wake.
Come on, Ava, we must go.
They would be known as the Huns. The Roman writer Ammianus Marcellinus wrote with distaste about these
Oh my god,
frighteningly
dude.
ruthless nomads.
The Huns are a race savage beyond all parallel.
Coming soon.
They grow
but
up
lost.
without beards,
Dude,
with closely
I don't
knit
have
and
this
strong
stuff.
limbs.
I'm gonna die.
They are all without fixed abode or
Yep,
settled
I'm dead.
mode of life.
It's not even showing me.
None of their
They don't even
offspring,
have
when
the
asked,
fucking
can tell you
meter.
where he comes from.
This game is just broken.
Since he was conceived in one place, born far from there, and brought up still farther away.
Dude, they literally just won't leave.
The arrival of the Huns was a major factor that contributed to the collapse.
Did I literally just need to save my ammo? Is that just the only thing I can
In
do
the
now?
decades that followed, under the rule of their leader Attila, the
Are they
Huns
fucking gone?
would remake the balance of power in Europe. They fleetingly captured large areas up to the
Holy
banks
shit,
of the
this
Rhine
game sucks.
and left fire and destruction in their wake. Part of the reason for the Huns' success was their innovative use of the technological
God, I
development
think I might fight
of the
somebody in
composite
real life
bow.
that like enjoys this
Bows
game.
made of a single piece of wood had a natural limit
Like
to
I
their
don't know
power.
if this is
But
just a
on the
game
steppe,
you
a
really
good
like to
bow
play
would
in
mean
your
the
free
difference
time
between
and
life
you
and
continue
death.
to do so.
And so people had poured immense
I
energy
just have
into
serious
developing them.
reservations about your character.
By the time of the Huns, these were already intricate constructions,
I know you think you're gonna
combining
play dumb.
multiple materials. A core
We're gonna make
of
it, though.
maple wood,
We just gotta make it
bone
back to the
and
church.
antelope horn, knotted with sinew, deer gut, and leather, all held together with a fish-based glue.
God, dude, yeah.
The combination
I
of these
really
materials
don't like wolves
created
anymore.
a bow with immense
I mean, I didn't like them
elasticity,
already, but
capable of
I don't know.
hurtling an
This
arrow
fucking
at
game just
tremendous
gives you such
speeds
little
and over
opportunity to
great
defend
distances.
yourself.
reportedly as far as 300 meters. If these accounts are
300
accurate,
meters?
then these bows could shoot further than an English longbow, which stood taller than a man, but crucially was
It's about that
packed enough
recurve,
to be drawn
baby.
from horseback.
Length don't do
The
nothing when
combination
you got that
of
recurve.
horse and composite bow would make the steppe horse archer the deadliest single entity on the planet.
True.
And in Europe, these
Me
weapons
as
would come
fuck.
to be known with fear and reverence as Hun bows. The people of China struggled no less with their nomadic neighbors. During the period of the Han dynasty, a
think
people
I
they
can make
knew
bandages
as
with
Xiongnu
cloth,
constantly
if I remember
menaced their
correct.
borders for much of the
Correctly.
first millennium, and may even
Are
have
you
been
gonna
the
be
same
warm enough
people
here?
as the European Huns.
Dumb idiot.
One Han period Chinese writer, Sima
Okay.
Jian, describes their way of life.
Oh, I did have a.
The Xiongnu are mountain barbarians. They move in search of water and pasture, and have no walled cities or fixed dwellings. Nor do they engage in any kind of agriculture. They wear clothes of hide or rats
Is
made
there
of
any
fur
bullets?
or felt. They have no right,
Any bullets?
and even their
'Cause I'm
promises
gonna
and
need 'em.
agreements are only verbal.
If there's any bullets,
The
yeah,
little
I'm
boys
gonna
start out by
need 'em.
learning to ride sheep and shoot birds and rats with a bow. Thus, all the young men are able to act as armed cavalry in time of war.
Around the
Okay.
4th century, these
Don't
peoples
delay,
also introduced
okay.
the stirrup,
I'm not trying
straps
to
for
delay.
the rider's feet that help them stay in the saddle and allow them even greater control of their horses. One medieval Chinese writer describes the sight of a steppe horse warrior in action.
When they ride at a gallop, they always stand in the stirrups rather than sit in
Where's
the
this
saddle.
cave?
They are swift as the onrush
Fuck
of a
it,
gale
dude. We're gonna go
and
to the
strong as the weight
Sasquatch
of a
cave. I
mountain.
don't even care.
Wheeling left and cutting right like wings in flight, they shoot with power enough to pierce armor.
Unless there's
For the
wolves over there.
civilizations that lived on the borders of the steppe, in China, India, Persia, the Middle East and Eastern Europe, these nomadic peoples could be alien, frightening and primitive. While they were divided,
Alien.
they could be contained,
Dun,
controlled,
dun.
and violently put down. But every few hundred years, they would unite into a force large enough to flood out of the steppe. They would come to conquer and settle, to wreak havoc and sow destruction, but every time to change the course of history. The most dramatic of these stories would take place as the 12th century came to a close, and the memory of Attila's Huns had faded to just another ghost story from classical history. It would come in the form of a people who were perhaps the most unlikely of conquerors. When our story starts, they had many names, but soon they would become
Xiongnu.
known as the Mongols.
Holy shit.
To find the location of the beginning of this
Oh my
story,
God.
we must travel to the east,
Wait, can I
along
just...
the wide expanse of the
I'm just gonna
Eurasian
load
steppe.
from here for a second.
For thousands of kilometers, we would see only grassland and seasonal deserts. Then we pass over the Altai
Okay.
Mountains, home to wolves, curly-horned ibex, and eagles. Finally, we would reach the far eastern steppe on a high plateau of what is today Mongolia. At the end of the
70%.
12th
No way we
century,
fumble that,
the
right?
Mongols were just one of countless groups that existed in this land, speaking Turkic languages like Uyghur and dialects of Mongolia, and worshipping any number of gods. But despite this variation, many of them followed a similar way of life. Life on the steppe meant following the natural cycles of the world. In the warm summers, the rains come,
Heard that about this
and
stuff,
the
actually.
grassland flushes green. During these months, the nomads' herds of cattle, goats, sheep, camels, and horses have plenty to eat, and they graze in their summer pastures on the open grassland. But as the cold, dry winters descend, herders would move to their winter pastures in the north, where the green valleys at the foot of the mountains remain shaded, and there are still grasses growing. This natural cycle dictated every aspect of steppe life, as one medieval Chinese writer, Zhao Gong, describes.
In their custom, each time the grass grows green is 1 year. So if someone asks one of them his age, he says how many times the grass has greened. Also, once when I asked one of them what month and day he was born, he laughed and replied, "I can't remember, nor did I ever know it in the first place."
Winter on the steppe is harsh. During these months, the wind blows straight from Siberia, and a layer of ice can often cover the grasslands completely. When the grass is frozen, steppe peoples would allow their horses to graze ahead of the other animals.
Oh, bow.
They would use their hooves
dude, I
to
don't
crack
have the
the
bow.
ice, and then other livestock, like sheep, could follow.
Oh, did I never
In the flat,
fix
featureless
my
landscape,
blood loss?
people navigated
Oh my
primarily
God, not in
using
this
rivers,
universe, I didn't.
which interlace the steppe in countless waterways. Among them, the Orkhon, the Selenga, and the Onon. By riding up and down these rivers, the steppe peoples could find their way, and would never be far from water for their horses. The knowledge of these river paths were passed on from person to person by word of mouth, through poems and songs. The primary mode of shelter in the steppe was the tent. One Chinese writer of the time, named Li Xinchuan, describes these habitations.
They have neither walls nor moats, nor houses nor mansions, but instead make felt tents, for which they choose dwelling places that have the most beneficial water and grass.
In English, these tents are often called yurts, derived from a Turkic word, but in Mongolian
Turkic word
they are
for
known
fucking
as
what?
gir. Their
Where I
structures
fucking
are made of
smash.
lattice of light but strong willow wands, and their walls are made of felt, a material created by pressing together layer upon layer of sheep's wool. These tents are warm during winter and cool during summer, and they are also fully mobile,
Holy shit.
designed to be dismantled and rebuilt every day if necessary, and carried from place to place on the back of carts.
So those are in light sources.
The Chinese observer Peng Daya wrote the following description of seeing steppe people moving across the landscape.
The yurts, that is,
Airline
felt tents
food.
in which they live, have neither walls nor roof beams. They move them to follow the grass and water, never staying for long. Cattle, horses, or camels are used
Chicken.
to pull their carts, on which it is roomy enough to sit or recline. These carts are dispatched in groups of 5, looking like columns of ants as they wind along, extending out for 5 miles.
Some of these carts could be huge, designed to carry the tents of nobles on their back. One European visitor to Mongolia in the Middle Ages,
Okay,
William
so now
of
the last
Rubruck,
one.
described seeing carts as large as
So
10
I'm just gonna go
meters
back to
wide,
Molly's house.
about the length of a London bus.
And that should be...
These dwellings are
Alright.
constructed of such a size as to be on occasions 30 feet across. I myself once measured a breadth of 20 feet between the wheel tracks of a wagon And when the
Hopefully
dwelling was on the wagon,
the
it
claims
protruded
that these
beyond the wheels
torches
by at
ward
least
off
5 feet on either side.
Timberwolves.
The
Hopefully
wagon's
that's
axle
true.
was as large as a
Or
ship's
else
mast.
I'm kind of fucked.
I have counted 22 oxen to one wagon.
Ooh, any supplies in this truck?
These carts were insulated from the changeable weather of the steppe, and those used to transport valuables were protected by a special kind of felt that had been soaked in waxy tallow to keep out the rain. When their day's travelling was done, the steppe peoples would fortify their camp by placing their cars in a ring, making a makeshift wall to keep out raiders and thieves. Their gear tents were always erected facing south, so that the sun would shine in through the doorway. The heads of the house and people of high status would always sit on the north side of the tent, facing the door, while more junior members of the clan would sit in the south. In the center of the gear was a hearth fire made from burning pieces of dried dung.
Holy shit, you were
This
moving
was
Astrid.
a resource
Let's
in
go.
infinite abundance among herders, but usually goat dung was preferred, since it burned cleanly and gave off a pleasant smell like burning leaves. Above this fire, there was a smoke hole cut in the felt roof. These smoke holes had a practical purpose as a chimney, but they also held a kind of spiritual significance. The
Ooh, I wonder
fire
if there's
and
anything in the
hole
trunk of
tent
this car.
were considered to be a means to communicate with the clan's ancestors, and was a ceremonial space for rituals. We can imagine a Mongol family sitting around this fire.
See,
with
what
the
would be
vast
nice is a
darkness
game
of the
where I
steppe
don't
at
even
night
want
outside,
a video
watching
to
the
watch
sparks
because I'm
of their
actually
fire
entertained by the
drift
game.
out through the hole in the roof.
It's actually like
as the howling
one of my
steppe wind
wildest
outside
dreams.
batters the felt walls of the tent.
Come on, please have bullets in here. God damn it.
For those nomads who lived on the open grasslands of the steppe, life was
Basic
good.
crafting.
Their vast herds turned the virtually infinite supply of grass into ample meat and milk, from which they could make a variety of cheese, yogurts, and other dairy products.
Mongolians are
and
eating cheese,
dung
bro?
that could be burned in their fires. The steppe gave them everything they needed to survive,
That is
and for
crazy.
everything else, they could trade with the lands of China to the south. Nomadic
lands
peoples
of
would
China.
buy silk, fine silver items, and carved furniture, along with all the comforts of sophisticated society. And in return, they would trade northern goods, like furs, of which the most valued was the delicate dark pelt of the sable, a kind of small
That's what he
pine
sounds
marten,
like.
along with
Ooh.
leather, bone and antler for carving, herd animals like cattle and sheep, and
what is
majestic
supposed
tame
to be
hunting
over
birds
here?
like
Oh,
the
shit.
golden eagle, taken from the
Little
forest
shack.
as fledglings and trained to
Looks
hunt
like there's
small
a dead
game.
guy in there.
But above all, they traded the thing that settled societies needed most, and nomads
hell
had
yeah.
in enormous supply: horses. As a result, these clans in the south of the Mongolian steppe, like the Tatars
Search
and
Kolbin.
Karaite,
I need that
were
shit.
richer and lived more comfortable lives, and they defended their enviable positions with extreme ferocity.
Stone.
In contrast, for much of their history, the Mongols were
Revolver
among the losers
cartridge.
of
Dude,
the
I don't
steppe
have a
world.
revolver.
While other nomads thrived on the southern grasslands,
sucks.
the Mongols subsisted in the harsh north, on the edge of the mountains and the endless Siberian forests, home to wolves, bears,
well.
and wild forest peoples like the
I gotta
Merkit.
get to Molly's house.
Here, the grasses were meager and couldn't support large herds. As a result, the Mongols supplemented their diets by hunting
It's
deer
Molly's
and
barn
small
first.
mammals like marmots, gathering pine nuts
Oh,
in
shit.
the forests, and fishing in the rivers. The medieval Persian historian Atamalik Juvaini writes
got that
about the
hatchet now.
sorry
I'll
state
be fine.
of this people.
They had no chief, or ruler. Each tribe lived separately. They were not united with one another, and
A
there was
story of
constant fighting
ununited
and hostility
tribes?
between them. Their clothing
Where have I
was
heard
of the
this before?
skins of dogs and mice, and their food was the flesh of those animals and other dead things.
God damn, living off
Their wine
mice.
was mare's milk.
God damn,
and their
Mongolians.
dessert,
They weren't wrong
the
about
fruit
you.
of a tree shaped like a pine. The sign of a great king amongst them was that his stirrups were made of iron.
True.
From that, one can form a picture of their other luxuries.
Part of the reason for their poor situation
king,
was that
the
the Mongols
stirrups
were
of a
among
king
the
were
most
made of
divided
iron.
peoples of the
My
steppe,
fucking stirrups are
constantly
made from literal
fighting amongst
shit.
themselves. Other steppe peoples
see me
had long
complaining
ago
about it.
formed large
Most of the
confederations and adapted to the cultures of more settled societies around them, even taking on their religions. Some, like the Khitan, had adopted Buddhism, while others had converted to Islam, which had arrived in the southern steppe some centuries before, usually with traders passing through. Others still, like the Kerait and the Naiman,
55%
had even
chance this is
converted
gonna be
to
the
the
time we get
cult
it.
of a powerful
This is gonna be the time
shaman
we
from a faraway
salam it.
land, who was rumored to have risen from the dead, a man named
Yes, fire.
Jesus Christ.
Yes,
Word of his teachings had been brought to Mongolia by Assyrian Nestorian missionaries around the 11th century, and had appealed to many people there, since the name Jesus reminded them of the word Yesu, which in Mongolian means the number 9, a number considered to be sacred and to bring good luck. But the Mongols on the edge of the Siberian forests had adopted no such beliefs. They maintained the ancient
only a
beliefs of their
receiver.
ancestors, worshipping the Earth Mother Goddess and their ancient god of the great blue sky, who they named Tengri. The 11th century
Oh, is that why
Muslim
that's why it's
scholar
called Tengris in
Mahmud
there?
al-Kashgari describes the worship of this god.
Tengri means God. The infidel nomads call heaven Tengri, and likewise everything natural that impresses them. For example, a high mountain or a large tree. They worship such things, and they call a wise man Tengri Khan.
Tengri Khan.
The god
Can I warm up
Tengri
here for a
was
second?
believed to reside particularly in the region of a vast freshwater lake known as Lake Baikal.
Oh,
And
wait,
it's
that's
here
real.
that the mythology of the Mongols begins.
Wait, really? That's like
In the Mongol
deepest lake in
conception
the
of
world.
their own history, their story began when a Siberian wolf
Sick.
mated with a roe deer and gave
What?
birth to the first of their royal line. This founding myth is recounted in the enigmatic document known as
The secret history of the Mongols. I've heard this. I think that's where we get all of our information from the Mongols, actually.
There was a blue-grey wolf
Because I
born
don't think
with a
they
destiny
really
from
started
heaven above.
writing a lot until hundreds
His
of
wife
years
was a
later,
beautiful
after
red
the herd had
anotha.
been established, and
They came crossing the
oh,
sea.
that's interesting.
They made their home at the headwaters of the Onan River.
With a surface area of more than 30,000 square kilometers, Lake Baikal is slightly larger than the country of Belgium and is the largest freshwater lake in Eurasia. And sitting as it does on a tectonic rift, it is also by far
Let's go.
the deepest on the planet,
Yo.
plunging to a depth of more than 1,600 meters.
So that's really
As
deep.
a result,
It's like
it is
4,000
also
feet,
the world's
almost a mile deep.
largest lake in volume, containing more than all the American Great Lakes combined.
What?
In fact, this one lake is estimated to contain somewhere between a quarter to a fifth of all the surface fresh water on planet Earth. For most people of the steppe, this was the largest body of water they would ever see.
Yeah.
And on account of this,
Largest
the
body of water a lot
Mongols
of people
would
ever
often
see.
simply refer to it as the sea.
That's based.
When winter comes to the Siberian wastes, Lake Baikal freezes solid, with ice many meters thick, and the snows glow in chaotic patterns
Is
over
there
its
ever
surface.
anything in here?
According to the story, 11 generations after this unnatural coupling of wolf and deer on the shore of Lake Baikal, a woman known as Alan Gua, or Alan the Beautiful, would give birth to 5 sons.
Is that wolf from the video
And
or
from
this
these
game?
5 men were supposed to have descended the royal lineage of the Mongols. One day, the legend says, Alan the Beautiful found her 5 sons arguing with one another. She gathered them together and taught them a lesson that has passed into legend.
She gave them each an arrow shaft and told them to break it. Each one was broken and let fall. Then she took 5 arrow shafts
There we
bundled
go.
together, gave
I'm
the
coming,
shafts to
Survivor.
them, and told them to break them. All 5 of them, one after another, took the 5 arrow shafts joined together, but were unable to do as she said and break it.
Oh,
Then,
does that yellow
their mother,
thing mean
Alan
that there's a
Beautiful,
shell in there?
spoke
I haven't
words
noticed
of
that before.
admonition to her 5 sons. You, my 5 sons, were born from a single
Okay.
womb. You are
Boom.
just like
Last
the
survivor.
5 arrow shafts.
Get
If
this
you are
lady over to
alone,
Molly's house.
One by one, you will be easily broken by anyone. But if you are joined in accord as one, then how could you be broken by anyone?
Smashed that soda, bro.
This story was told to
Diagnose.
generations of Mongol children.
Oh my god, you look
And
bad.
it contained a powerful truth about life on the steppe.
I'm drink some water.
Out there, family was the most powerful connection that anyone had. And without it, you were left alone, hungry, and defenseless.
Can I go up here?
Mongols thought of their kin relationships as a kind of branching tree or river. They traced their
Scrub
ancestry
bush?
back to real ancestors,
12
a
sticks.
relationship known
pretty
as
cool.
Uruk.
Okay.
But the Mongol elite
Come on, Wade.
also held to a kind of mythical kinship, in which every person was descended from one or other semi-mythical character who
Actually,
lived
you
in
know
the
what,
vague
Wade?
and distant past, often one of the sons of
We're gonna
Alan
eat
the
some
Beautiful.
food.
In this way, Mongols considered themselves to belong to a wider clan group that often had little to do with their actual heritage. These
Why does the
they
stale
called
granola
their
bar have
oba.
more calories than the new one?
Accompanied with these two
Fermentation
systems
or
of
something?
relationship was a third, one that people could
That can make
freely
sense.
choose to enter into. This was known as anda, a kind of blood brother. In this ritual, 2 close friends
come on,
could
Wade.
swear an eternal allegiance, essentially becoming family. And this relationship was taken just as seriously as any connection.
I think
of
the wolves
kinship.
do have something to do with the time
One
of day.
Mongol
I think the
text of the
earlier in the
time
day that we are, the
records
more
the depth of this
little
bond.
chance we have of running into them. But I also think that things are semi just triggered by events. So I think anytime I have one
If
of
we listen
these
to the words of the elders
survivors,
and
it's
the
just going to be
ancients,
annoying.
this is the way in which Anda love each other. People who are Anda are as if they have one life without any
Go to
separation,
Molly's.
and are lifelong saviors to each other.
To survive in the
See,
harsh
wait,
world
so it
of the
says-
steppe, people had to be tough, but they also had to come together. To get a sense of the reality of this life, there is no better
It says
example
that this can
than the
ward
upbringing
off
of one man
timberwolves.
born here on the steppe, whose story
Is
we
that
know
true?
in unprecedented detail. A man who would rise from humblest beginnings imaginable to change the course of world history. His name was Temujin, but that is not the name that history would know him by.
Does this even do anything? Ow. Okay, nope. Okay, this just doesn't work.
It's worth mentioning that all of the story you are about
Dude,
to
this
hear
is so
was
dumb.
very nearly lost to history. But in 1866, a Russian monk working in the archives of China uncovered a remarkable manuscript. It was a Chinese copy of a copy of a copy of a lost Mongolian document, written by an unknown author sometime in the 13th century. This book used Chinese characters to recreate the phonetic sounds of the Mongolian language, and was used as a kind of textbook to help Chinese scholars who were learning Mongolian. For this reason, its characters appeared to be nonsense in Chinese, and so it was lost among the archives. But once its contents were deciphered, it transformed our understanding of this period.
See, it's just like, I don't know, dude, this game just feels so lazy. And then they're gonna attack me again before I even get to
telling
Mongols.
in unprecedented
I already
detail
know it.
the ups and downs of their story.
This thing will ward off Timberwolves,
known
except for when
as
you
the
actually need it
secret
to,
history
once
of the
in the
Mongols.
fucking game where you can't just run away,
It's
and then,
the first
oh yeah,
and most
it won't work.
important source
Never mind.
ever written in the Mongolian language, and
Super
it
sick.
blends narrative history with flourishes of vaulting epic poetry.
What is this weird light on my neck?
The story
Oh,
of
that's
the man
from below
named
me.
Temujin
Never mind.
begins in the second half of the 12th century with his mother, a young woman named Oolun. She was from the eastern Mongolian
Yep, and
steppe
there's that
to the
wolf again
southeast
over there.
of Lake Baikal, and was probably no more than a teenager. She had just married a man named Chiledu of the Merkit people. This young couple was in love, and she was now traveling back to his homeland with him to live with his family in their camp. But things would not go according to the young lovers' plan. On their fateful journey home, they passed through the lands of a warrior named
I'm just gonna
Yesuge,
save the game right
the leader
here,
of a small
so I won't be
Mongol
mad if I
band
have to come back
on
to
the
you.
great Onon River. Yesuge had once been a powerful leader, but had recently fallen on tough times. That day, he was out hunting with his hawk when he saw the marriage procession pass by, and caught sight of the beautiful face of Oolun. Yesuge already had a wife, but upon seeing Oolun, he became overcome with desire for her. And as
Just
a
get
Mongol
away from me,
warrior,
wolves.
he was used to taking what he desired.
Dirty bastards.
He rode back to his camp and gathered his
Damn
two
dirty
brothers,
bastards.
and together they chased after the wedding party with murder in their hearts. When Oolun and her husband saw the warrior brothers bearing down on them, she begged her husband to flee and save his life, as the secret history records.
His bride, Madame Oolun, said to him, have you understood what those three men are about? Their looks say they want your life. As long as you have your life at least, you will find a woman to wed. Save your life.
Chiledu listened to her pleas and fled across the grasslands, leaving Oolun to be captured. The two of them would never see each other again.
Oh no,
The
this
three
sounds so
riders
tragic.
chased him from behind
But I'm really
over
scared of
7
these wolves,
ridges
so that's what I've been focusing
until
on.
they drove him off. They came back, and Yesuge
What is that
took
building
Madame
right there?
Oolun by the tether,
We already been
and
there?
she wailed in a great voice. She wailed until the Onon River echoed it, and the wooded valley rang with it.
I think that's where we found that dead
We
guy.
don't know
right?
what happened to Oolun's husband, Chiledu, but it seems he never made any
Oh, yeah,
attempt
for
to
sure.
recapture her. In the harsh world of the steppe, a man only had rights to what he could defend, and Oolun was now no longer considered his wife. As for Oolun, her heartbreak must have been
We're
overwhelming.
gonna have to take the
But
shortcut.
she seems to have accepted
Come on,
her
Wade,
fate
you got
and
this.
settled into the new life that Yesuge had forced upon her at the edge of the mountains and the great Siberian forest. Here, she would have to be tough to survive. Yesuge already had a wife, and by then this woman had borne him a son named Begta. Soon Oelun too became pregnant and gave Yesuge their first child together. This child was a boy, and it said that
like
when he came screaming into the world, he was clutching a tiny but fearsome omen in his little hand.
Is this Temujin
When
lore?
Madame Olun was big with child, just then, when they were at Delhi on Boldak on the Onon River, he was born. When he was born clutching a clot of blood in his
Holy
right
shit,
hand.
okay. Video
the
baby,
size
not game
of a
baby.
knucklebone.
To the Mongols, this was an unmistakable sign that the boy would grow up to be a warrior.
Oh yeah.
The year was around
I like how they know
1162. In the Chinese calendar, the year of the horse. At the time, the Mongols were at war with another, much more powerful steppe people, the Tatars, who lived closer to the border with northern China.
The wolves are
Yesuge
back.
had recently captured a Tatar warrior named Temujin
I
Uga
just don't know
in
where
battle,
they are.
and in celebration of this feat, he decided to name the new baby boy after his captured enemy.
glitched.
The name Temujin likely meant blacksmith or iron worker, but in time it would come to gain a different association: the Iron One, or the man of iron. This captured man may even have been executed at the naming ceremony, and his strength ritually given to the new baby boy. From this bloody beginning, Temujin's childhood was a tough one, but it forged him into the man he would become.
Dude, I only have one of
on the banks
these.
of the Onon River, he would have learned to hunt and fish, and of course how to ride a horse from a young age. One Chinese writer describes the life of a steppe child.
Even 3-year-old toddlers are secured to the saddle with rope and given something to grasp with their hands so they can follow along as the rest dash about on horseback. In their 4th and 5th years, they carry under one arm a small bow and short arrows, and when grown, they occupy themselves during all 4 seasons with hunting game.
What the?
Hunting on the steppe was done using a system
I'm
known
dead.
as the Nurch or noose, and these grand hunts
just kill me.
would take
I don't care
place
anymore.
every year
Kill me.
and involve large numbers
Oh my
of different
God.
families and kin groups. Every Mongol learned from a young age how to work together with other riders across a vast distance, encircling a huge area of land, and driving all the wild animals within it into the center of their ring. Then the noose tightened. They would drive the animals closer and closer together until there was nowhere left to run. Then they would begin to fire hundreds of arrows into the mass of terrified prey. Yesuge would have taught his young sons this skill from a young age.
I fucking hate this game.
But Temujin's relationship with his kidnapper of a father may have been a strained one.
We're just
Yesuge
gonna go to Molly's
already
house then
had
and see
an
if we can
oldest
find
son
anything
by
that'll help
another
us.
woman, the boy named Begta. And Begta seems to have enjoyed reminding Temujin of his place. When Temujin was 9 years old, his father clearly worried about the divisions in his family. He decided to take the young boy to find a wife of his own. They traveled out together and met with the ruler of a nearby clan, who was also something of a shaman. He told Yesuge that the boy who rode beside him was destined for great things.
This boy of yours is a boy with flame in his eyes and fire in his face. Last night I dreamt a dream. A white falcon flew towards me, clutching the sun and the moon, and alighted on my hand. This dream of mine was showing me that you would come leading this boy of yours.
We're gonna have to see if we can find any.
The chief gave the young boy the hand of one of his daughters, a girl named Borta. She was a year older than him, and at the first sight of her, Temujin fell in love, a love that would never leave him. On his way home, his father Yasuge must have been satisfied. He had found a good wife for his young son, and could now head home to a family made at peace. But fate would conspire against him. That night he stopped at a camp belonging to some Tartar men. By this time, the Tartars and the Mongols were no longer at war, but they were still bitter rivals.
Come on.
The customs on the steppe stated that whenever someone stopped at your camp, you were required to set your differences aside and offer them hospitality. But these Tartars had other ideas, as secret history recounts.
Remembering their early grudge, they plotted murder and mixed in poison for him. Feeling sick on the way, he went for 3 days and arrived at his ger and felt worse. Yasuge said, "My insides feel sick. I fell victim to a plot and now I feel sick inside." Having spoken, he died.
Hearing of this treachery from a rider sent by his dying father, Temujin rode hard across the steppe, heading home to be with his mother, and left his betrothed, Borta, behind. The death of Yasuge left this vulnerable family exposed and alone in the cruel world of steppe politics. Yasuge's clan had been a mixture of different peoples, including families of Mongols known as the Borjigin and Tayachut, and they had little holding them together other than Yasuge's leadership. Now they split into separate parts and departed in all directions, and none of them had any room for a widowed woman and her hungry children.
I'm not really making that.
They left Olun and her children behind, alone, destitute, and starving on the banks of the Onon River, as the secret history records.
The Taichute brethren moved camp down along the Onon River to leave behind on the range Madame Olun the widow,
Nothing.
the
Why are
little
all
ones and
these
boys,
things empty?
the mothers and children.
The Taichut took their livestock, their goats and their sheep, and left them with only the few horses they owned. This was practically a death sentence.
Is that a wolf?
When winter came to the steppe, this feeble group would no doubt freeze and run out of food. But remarkably, that's not what happened. That's because Olun refused to let her children starve.
Madame Olun, born both womanly and wise, finding food for her small boys, fixing up her flowing skirts, flying up and down the Onon River's flood, finding wild fruits, crabapples and cherries, filled she the night and day their famished throats. They were well raised on wild garlic and onion, lily bulbs, leeks, and onion leaves.
At night, while they ate these meager foods, she told them the stories of her ancestors, the stories that had been passed down to her from her parents, the stories of Alan the Beautiful and her 5 unruly sons.
Wait,
and
did
the
I leave the
parable
revolver
of
in
5
here?
arrows that could not be broken so long as they stayed together. At first, the boys seemed to have taken these lessons to heart.
Их эзний дижсэн хөвгүүд эрс сайд болон өсөж, эрх омог төвлөрөг болж
saying to each other, "We must feed our mother." They sat on Mother Onon's muddy banks and mastered metal hooks and lures, catching maimed and motley fish. Turning needles into hooks, they hooked
Holy
trout
shit, did I just
and
find
little
something?
whitefish. They sifted pools for silver minnows, and
I
so
didn't
they
do this
served
last
back
time.
their mother's love.
шүүрдэн байж жагас жарахыг гогтон барьж жаяад ихе тэжээх болов.
It was around this time that Temujin met another boy of the same age, whose family would often camp near to their own settlement. This boy's name was Jamuka. The two boys hunted and fished together and became good friends. In fact, they became so close that they swore to enter into that bond of chosen kinship and became what the Mongols called anda, a kind of blood brother. They most likely spilled a drop of their blood into a cup of fermented mare's milk and both drank from it, swearing an oath of eternal brotherhood and always to fight on one another's behalf. It must have been hard to imagine at the time, watching these two skinny boys playing in the hills or at games of knucklebones beside the great river. But one day they would fight one another in a bitter civil war over who
dude, I
would
didn't
rule
leave the gun
all
in here.
people of
This
the Mongols.
sucks. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Soon winter came to the steppe. Snow fell and the Onon River froze solid. The now reduced family must have come close to death. But finally, spring arrived on the steppe, and the ice on the grasslands thawed. But by this time, all was not well among this lonely family. Despite their mother's stories warning them to stay united, a bitter rivalry had always existed between Temujin and Yesugei's oldest son, Begta, who had been born of another mother. This rivalry would only grow bitterer as their situation worsened and hunger set in. As the older and larger boy, Begta often took for himself the best of the fish and birds that they caught, until eventually Temujin had had enough. He and his younger brother Kasar soon plotted to kill their older brother. It wasn't just Begta's selfishness that motivated this decision. With their father dead, their mother Oalun was an unmarried woman. As a result, she was considered available for marriage, and though it might seem strange to us, the most likely candidate may have been her young stepson Begta. Traveling to Mongolia a century later, the Venetian explorer Marco Polo noted this peculiarity of Mongol marriage laws.
The marriage customs of Tartars are as follows. Any man may take 100 wives if he so please, and if he be able to keep them. But the first wife is ever held most in honor, and as the most legitimate. They may marry their cousins, and if a father dies, his son may take any of the wives, his mother always excepted. That is to say, the eldest son may do this, but no other.
If Begta married Oalun, he would secure his position as the undisputed head of the family. Temujin and Kasar were determined not to
Why
let
is it
that
saving
happen.
right there?
The pair of them chose their moment carefully. They took their bows and crept up on Begta while he sat on the hill, drawing their bowstrings taut. When he saw them, he briefly pleaded for his life, but they didn't listen. Temujin and Kasar shot him with their arrows
Just
and
let
left
me
his
go
body
back.
to lie in the long grass of the steppe. When they returned to their tent, their mother saw the murder in their eyes.
Темүжин хасар хоёр гэр дирж ордог өжин их хоёр хөвгүүнийхэн чараагийг харамгч дорой учрыг мэдэж
When they came
I feel
back
like
into
I'm
the
just gonna
clear,
walk into my death
the
again.
Madame
It's gonna be
Mother
the exact
understood
same
it
thing.
all from the faces of her two children. Murderers! She shouted. When bursting out from my hot womb, he wielded in his hand a black blood clot, like a hound that devours its own, like a panther that pounces against a cliff, like a lion that
Is that a
cannot
car?
restrain its
Can
wrath,
hide in there.
like a wolf that stalks in the whirling blizzard. You killed your own brother.
момогт арслан мэт бороо өдөр довтлон халдаг.
Why is there so much brother on brother violence back in ancient times?
When summer came again that year,
I feel like your brother
their old
was like
tribe, the
number one
Tayachuk,
way to get
returned,
killed back then.
following their seasonal route as always. They must have expected to find nothing but a collection of whitened bones littering the steppe where they had left the family of Oalun and her children to die. But they were astonished and
Calm
a
down,
little
Dave.
concerned to find these young
You're
men and their
overreacting.
mother still living by the side of the river. Somehow, they had clung to life. This could turn out to be a problem for the Tayachut. These boys were becoming stronger each year, and maybe one day they would be strong enough to take revenge for abandoning them. Perhaps when the Tayachut heard of Temujin's killing of Bekta, they used this as an excuse to hunt him down as an outlaw. Temujin ran, and they chased him high up into the mountains. Fleeing for his life, he made for one peak in particular
Holy shit,
that
are we
held
about to
great significance. The
escape
sacred
the pain?
mountain named Burkhan Khaldun. Among the rocky
No way.
slopes strewn with
I almost don't believe
there
it.
grow forests of Siberian
I'm so scared.
larch
I've
and
got
pine,
anxiety going
where
fucking.
it was possible for him to hide. For a while he evaded them among the forest's shady depths, but the Tayachut posted guards in a wide circle and slowly closed the net around him. Eventually they cornered him and dragged him back to their camp as a prisoner. At first, the Tayachut planned to execute Temujin, but they soon changed their
Oh,
minds.
dude, Genghis Khan
A
was
young,
back.
strong boy like him would make a good worker.
True.
And so they brought the young man back to live as a slave in their camp.
Oh
To
god, not the
humiliate
save
him,
symbols.
they forced him to wear a heavy wooden board
I don't want to
around
deal
his
with it.
neck. This prevented him from eating or sleeping comfortably, and made his status as a slave known to everyone. It's not known how long he was held captive here, but all
Probably
that
made
time,
him really fucking
Temujin
mad.
must have been thinking of his bride, Borta, and dreaming that they would one day be reunited. Eventually, he saw his chance to escape.
Жунай тэргүүн сарын 16-ны улаан тэргэл өдөр Тайчууд онны ирэг дээр хоригдж.
One night, the Tayachut feasted on the red disk day,
I'm just gonna
the
save
16th
here.
of the first moon of
Currently
summer,
no
on the banks
wolves.
of the Onon, as
Okay.
the sun went down. A feeble youth brought to him to that feast. As the fellows at the feast were being sent away, he grabbed the wooden board away from the feeble boy, struck him on the head once with it, and ran. He lay down on his back on the river's edge, the moonlight bright as day.
Oh my god, are we gonna make it? I think so. I see the smoke.
With the Tayachut guards combing the steppe for him, Temujin saw only one chance
So
to
I
escape.
literally just went the wrong way.
He leapt into the icy
Bad move.
river, and the heavy wooden
Maybe
board
the wolves
acted as
aren't
a
generated by
flotation
the
device.
story.
When he climbed out of the water some way downstream,
Or they are,
he
and
found
the
a
game
family
just feels
of
bad
herdsmen
for me.
who helped him to remove the lock on the heavy
Knows
piece
that I'm
of
gonna
wood,
fucking
and he
uninstall,
limped
quit,
back
and
home
sue.
to his family. Oilun and his siblings must have been overjoyed to see him when he
It's not a
returned.
wolf, right?
But
it's
he
just a
had other
dumbass
things
dick,
on his
bro.
mind. The first thing he did when he returned was to ride out to claim his bride, Borta. He must have feared the worst, that her father had gone back on his word and given her to someone else, But perhaps the old shaman had remembered his vision and the fire he had seen in the eyes of that young boy. All those years, he had kept his daughter for the man she was promised to. She and Temujin were married. They had a daughter and lived together happily on the banks of the Onon River.
Nice.
And that is where the story of Temujin
He's fucking
might
killing
have
it,
ended,
honestly.
with a happy
But what
family,
happened
with children
would
and
enrage
grandchildren,
Temujin.
with a quiet death in a gear tent in the middle of the steppe, and we would never know his name. But history had other plans, and the steppe was no place for a quiet life.
True. So lots of wind.
One day, a raiding party of the northern forest people,
You're
known
gonna get home,
as the
don't worry.
Merkit, swept down on their camp while Temujin was out hunting. This raid was a perfect example of the tangled world of steppe rivalries and blood feuds. For in fact, these men were the brothers of Chiledu, the man that Temujin's mother Oalun had once married, and who had lost his wife to Yesuge. With Yesuge dead, these brothers of Chiledu were taking their revenge on the man's son instead. They burned his tents and took away his animals and what possessions he had, and just as Yesuge had once stolen Oalun, these Merkit raiders now stole his wife Water away and retreated with her back to the cover of the Siberian forests. With his small band, Temujin had little hope of reclaiming her. But he did have one chance. That was to reach out to the man who had once been his childhood friend on the banks of the Onon River. A man who was now a rising warrior in the nearby clan of the Kerait, his Anda blood brother, Jamuka. When Jamuka saw his old friend after so many years, he was overjoyed, but he must have seen the pain in Temujin's face. And when Temujin told him what had happened, Jamuka flew into a rage. The secret history records him giving the following promise.
A black leather war drum with its booming bellow I have beaten. A steed with swift steps have I saddled. A steel shirt have I worn. A solid spear have I seized. A stinging arrow on my string have I strung. To slaughter all the savage Merkit I set out.
The lord that Jamuka served was a man named Toghril Khan, the Khan of the Kerait people, and he agreed to help Temujin get his wife back. They spent that year building an army and set out in the autumn with a host over 30,000 strong, riding north into the hostile forests where the Merkit lived. They waited until nightfall, and then, under cover of darkness, they swept down on the Merkit camp in a surprise attack. The secret history records what happened next.
They swarmed in to seize his girls in a sudden swoop. They plundered his kingdom mercilessly. As the Merkit folk fled down the Selenge River in the night, as our soldiers dogged the heels of the fugitive Merkit through the night, plundering and looting, and as Temujin called out, "Borta! Borta!" they met. Madame Borta was there among the fugitives. She recognized Temujin's voice, got down from the wagon and ran towards him, and they hugged each other in welcome.
Okay. Where is
there was only
the
one
kitchen storage?
Temujin soon found out that his wife Borta had become pregnant. Since she had been captured and forcibly married to a Merkit lord, Temujin could never know whether the child was his. Perhaps for this reason, when his firstborn son came into the world, Temujin gave him the name Jochi, which in Mongolian means guest, perhaps alluding to the question of his fatherhood. But they all agreed to put the issue behind them, and Temujin accepted Jochi the guest as his eldest son. After this experience, it was now clear to Temujin that a life of peace was impossible on the steppe. For protection, he and his family joined Jamuka's camp, and the pair of Anda blood brothers rode together as equals for a year and a half. They hunted and fought together, and perhaps even played knucklebones together the way they had as boys. Jamuka also introduced Temujin to his lord and patron, the ruler of the Kerayit clan, the man named Toghril Khan. This time would have been crucial for Temujin. During his upbringing, he had known only hardship and poverty, whereas Jamuka had become an experienced warrior and leader. He must have taught Temujin all he knew. For a while, everything seemed to be going well. But eventually, Temujin began to detect a hint of resentment from his blood brother. Perhaps even a glimmer of contempt. One day, Jamuka ordered him to stay home and protect the clan's sheep herds, a clear sign that things were beginning to sour between these old friends. The two quarreled, and Temujin's wife Borta advised him to leave his friend and start out on his own.
Бүрдүүжин өгдөө. Жамуухан дамархан вайддаг гэдэг үг. Одоо биднээс вайдаг чаган болсон бич.
Madame Borta said, Jamuka Anda is said to be a person who easily gets tired of things. Now the time has come that he has become tired of us. Let us not pitch camp.
I think I
Let
left
us
some
make a
stuff
clean
in this
break
house,
and move
or this
away through
market
the night.
across the street, actually.
Шодоохон жамхаас хагчиж сүм туж явъя гэвэ.
With a heavy heart, Temujin agreed, and he and his family prepared
here
to
and
leave.
there, I left
He would
a
now
few
be
things.
starting again from the beginning, alone on the steppe. He expected to leave with just his wife and his small children, but to his surprise, he had gained a great deal of popularity among Jamuka's people. In fact, when
Maybe I left the
Temujin
gun in
made
here.
to leave
Whoa.
Jamuka's camp, half of his blood brother's followers asked to go with him. The loyalty that Temujin clearly inspired was partly due to his reputation for generosity. When dividing up the loot from a successful
I read
raid,
everything.
steppe peoples had for thousands of years adhered to an ancient system by which the elites and nobles took all the best plunder for themselves and then divided the rest among the other men as they saw fit. Common
Go across the
people
bridge.
were usually out
Across
of
the
this
bridge and
system.
see if I left anything.
In the harsh world of the steppe, strength was everything,
Couple
and
of
the
houses
strong
I can
took
check
the
over here,
lion's
maybe?
share. But Temujin appears to have been different. He had grown up on the freezing bank of the Onon River with his siblings and learned to share everything in common. He had once killed his older brother Begter, partly for taking the best food for himself, and since then must have harbored a distaste for this ancient system. And perhaps he had learned that inspiring loyalty in those around him was worth any amount of gold or any number of horses. As a result, he pioneered a new and somewhat radical system in the world of the steppe. In his party, loot would be shared according to merit, and those who did well in battle were given a greater share, even if they were just common people. Among his followers, he also, at times, introduced a kind of insurance policy, decreeing that any soldier who was killed in battle would have their share of the loot given
Little
to their
moldy,
widow
that's
and
all right.
orphaned children. A policy perhaps inspired by his own experience of losing his father and being plunged into poverty as a child. A certain amount of loot was also distributed to the elderly and disabled. All of this meant that when he left Jamuka's camp, a number of men wanted to follow him. But in taking half of his blood brother's people, Temujin had also gained a powerful enemy.
Dude, where did
Throughout
I
this time,
leave
the
that
Mongols
pistol?
were still a fractured and divided people. But now these two rival warriors both desired to make themselves ruler over all the Mongols, a title
Maybe I
that
left it
had
in
long
here.
been known as Khan. In the summer of
I think I did,
1189,
actually.
Temujin decided to take his chance. He summoned a meeting of the clans, known as a Kurultai. A Kurultai was a riotous event, part political rally and part festival. This one took place on the shores of a place on the steppe known as the Blue Lake. Here, the air would be filled with the sound of horses, laughter, and perhaps the mesmerizing sound of Mongolian throat singing, a unique vocal form in which the singers summon sound from deep in their larynx, with such precision that they are able to sing two notes at once. The Kurultai would have included games and feasts, the so-called three manly pursuits
Did I ever go into
of
this church?
horse
I
races,
think I might have.
wrestling, and
I think they
archery
purposely
tournaments.
made this church worse
And of
than
course,
the other one.
the
Yeah.
consumption of vast quantities of alcohol. It's likely the attendants would have drunk airak or kumis, the alcoholic drink made from fermented mare's milk. One Chinese diplomat named Zhao Gong, who attended a Mongol feast in the early 1220s, even records a kind of Mongol drinking game.
I feel like there
They do
has
not
to be
end their
at least
banqueting
one
until
place that I
everyone
just
is
left
roaring
shit,
drunk.
right?
Every time they drink wine,
You know what I mean?
it is their custom that those who sit next to each other should, after tasting, exchange cups. If one's counterpart holds the cup with one hand, it means that I must taste a mouthful, and only then will he dare to drink.
I think I
If
already
he holds
went
the
and
cup
checked
in
this
both hands,
house.
then he wishes to switch cups with me.
Great.
Then I have to drink his wine to the bottom and pour wine to toast him. This made it very easy to get drunk. Whenever they see a foreign guest talk uproariously, make noise, and act rudely in a drunken state, or else vomit or fall asleep, then they are very happy
Finish this
and
quest,
say the
dude.
guest gets
We're
drunk,
almost done, I
so
think.
his heart is one with ours.
Oh, now I find rifle cartridges.
But despite the revelry,
Of
the
course.
Kurultai had a very serious
Of course.
purpose. By holding this gathering of the clans, Temujin was declaring his intention to become Khan of the Mongols. This was not a particularly prestigious title. The Mongols were a weak and divided people, and any Khan who led them would still pay tribute to the much more powerful Togrel Khan of the Karaits. But it was still a clear declaration of war against the more likely claimant to the title, and the man who commanded the support of most Mongol nobles, his own blood brother Jamuka.
Jamuka.
When Jamuka heard news about this Kurultai, he must have been enraged. Clashes between the two men's followers intensified until one day
I wanna go
one
inside.
of
I heard
Jamuka's
that wolf.
relatives was killed in a cattle raid. This was the excuse he was looking for.
Very scary.
To finally go to war and crush his blood brother Temujin. The two sides gathered their forces. Temujin would finally meet his blood brother in battle at a place called Dalan Baljut. The Mongol horsemen would have wheeled around each other in great thundering packs, hailing one another with arrows before closing in and clashing with their long lances. We can imagine the thundering of the hooves, the cries of the dying men and horses, the whoops and battle cries, and the angry buzzing of arrows through the air. But here, Jamuka's greater experience and years of warrior training easily overpowered the inexperienced Temujin. The Secret History reports this loss in few words.
13 хүрээнээс 3 түмэн чиргийг авч Жамхыг ухтан мордоо.
They formed up into 3 units, rode against Jamuka. He was forced back then by Jamuka and escaped into the Chiran Gorge on the Onan River.
Чингис хаан Жамукад шихагдж онон үрнээ Жээрэн гэдэх авчид шургаж оров.
With Temujin defeated, the wrath of Jamuka was terrible. In retribution for siding with the upstart, Jamuka ordered that 70 princes of the Chinoa clan be boiled alive in great iron cauldrons. One leader's head was cut off, and Jamuka tied it to his horse's tail and
Sleep
dragged
for
it
12
behind him
hours,
as he rode.
eat some food.
Temujin's situation was now worse than ever. He was now an outlaw and fled for his life with the riders of Jamuka hot on his heels. He would not return to the steppe for another 10 years, and those years are a gap in his biography. But some historians think it likely that he went south, to the lands that lay across the great expanse of the Gobi Desert, a domain of large, wealthy cities, artists, merchants, poets, and emperors, the lands of China.
The lands of China. Alright, well, we've made some progress, and I need to go to sleep. So, I will see you guys
at the end of the 12th
tomorrow.
century
We will
was
continue
a
on
divided
with
land.
the Mongolians, and hopefully
Since the days of the first emperors of
collect
Qin
enough food
and
and
Han
shit,
dynasty, the settled people who lived
for
in
these
the
motherfuckers.
floodplains around the Yangtze
Yeah.
and Yellow
Peace
rivers
out.
had fought bitterly
Have
with the nomadic
a wonderful
horse-riding peoples of the
Goodbye.
steppe. And since
Sorry
that
for it.
time, China's emperors had built numerous defenses on their northern border that would become known as the Great